What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a lineup building video for the Masters. This is something I have never done before, but what I'm going to do is go through the tail end of my research process with you, and I'm actually going to generate the lineups that I'm going to enter in contests for the Masters. It's going to be max entering the Millie Maker. It's going to be max entering the Magnolia, that's 150 lineups a piece, along with a few other things. And I've never done anything like this before. I have no idea really how long this is going to take. As you can imagine, this is really just the lineup building portion of it. I generally have an idea of what I want to do. I've put out a lot of content this week. I went on with Pat Mayo. I did my own DFS video. I did the one and done video. I've been tweeting things out and slacking things out in our group all week long. I mean, going back to last week, this is the longest research process that I would do all year because the pricing comes out so early. So I generally already have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, but now we actually need to make some lineup decisions, which is the part that you're going to see here and how I come up with some of these solutions. And I am by no means, the final say here. There are certainly mistakes that I could make, and there will be mistakes that I make. And this is a tournament that is obviously near and dear to my heart. I took down a GPP last year, but even having the most optimal lineup, I hate to say winning $10,000 is disappointing, but it was a little disappointing when I had the lineup that if I entered it, I was in the Millie Maker. I was in whatever it was called, where it's 100,000 to first place. If I had lineups across all of them, if I had entered this specific lineup in any of them, I would have won it. So we're going to take another crack at it. I'll walk you through my strategy and what we're going to do here, and let me know what you think about this. If there is something that comes out of it that you have more questions about, tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand. Leave a comment below. I'm going to start probably getting a lot more into some educational things, maybe doing some courses. So if there is a topic that comes up, shout it out. Let me know. We'll get to it. That's about it for the intro. Let's jump into this. All right, so first things first, I want to show you what we're actually going to be playing this week. So here's the DraftKings lobby, and if you're listening to the audio pod, this might not be a great one to listen to. I don't know. I will try to discuss as much of my thought process as possible, but I am obviously going to be showing a lot of things, so you might want to check this out on YouTube. All right, so when I first opened the lobby here, I noticed a couple of things. First of all, I'm a sucker for the 20 max, so we're going to use our Core Cascading method in the 20 max there. This week, it's a $4 20 max, 800,000 guaranteed. It has a $50,000 top prize. It's fairly flat payouts, except for the first payout is 1.5 times your buy-in, and you don't even get to the to a 2 times buy-in until the third level of payouts here, which is not ideal, but they make it pretty top heavy. That's okay. It's a 20 entry max. But what caught my eye this week is DraftKings is running the Magnolia, which let me see if I can find this real quick here. Here it is. It's a $5 $200,000 guaranteed and a 2 times min cash. So if you look at this, 150 entry max, $10 is the first payout, and then you get a pretty, it's not as top heavy, 20,000 the first place, which we will certainly still take, then 10,000, 7,500, et cetera, et cetera. To me, the best structures are ones that are like this, 2 times min cash, and then 10th place is basically so first prize is 10% of the prize pool, and then 10th place is 10% of that. So if 200,000 is the guarantee, 10% of that, 20,000 to first, 10% of that, 2,000 to 10th. That to me is the best structure. And when I saw this, I'm a big put your money where your mouth is kind of guy. So if I'm going to say this is a really great structure, I need to reward DraftKings and play this in an attempt to continue to get similar structures like this. So we're going to roll with the Magnolia, which again is 150 lineups. And then quite honestly, I don't know if it is out of fear, FOMO, fear of missing out, right? But I'm going to take the same 150 lineups that we put into the Magnolia, and I'm going to put them into the Millie Maker. So here's the Millie Maker. It is a $150 or 150 entry, $20. Super top heavy. This is quite honestly, it's a terrible structure, but it has the $1 million prize. The first level is only 1.5 times your buy-in. The huge gap between $1 million at first and 150,000 in second is pretty brutal. This is all about the top prize. I think, quite honestly, I'm not sure how sustainable, this is a whole other conversation, but I'm not sure how sustainable these are for the industry, where you basically remove $1 million from the ecosystem every single week. Or I guess in the NFL, it's probably much worse. In golf, it's only a handful of times a year, not the most terrible thing in the world. Obviously, I'd love to win this terribly structured contest, but it is very high risk, very high reward. And quite honestly, we could have very easily put 300 different lineups between the Magnolia and the Millie Maker. But a couple things about that. There is a percentage of me that is this FOMO, which I think is a really bad way to approach it, quite honestly. But I really don't want to put a lineup like if I make the nut lineup again at the Masters and don't win the $1 million, I don't know what the chances are of me hitting the nut lineup, the optimal lineup 2 years in a row. But if I do it again and don't win the $1 million, I don't know. I won't be able to sleep. So we're gonna use a strategy where I can basically get every single lineup that I have is going to be in the Millie Maker, for example. I suspect that even when you have the same lineups, if 20% of them cash or whatever, the Magnolia will be a much better return, because the first level is 1.5 times your buy-in, or I'm sorry, it's 2 times your buy-in. It's just a much better payout unless you go out and actually win the Millie Maker. All right. So what I usually do here is I placed dummy lineups into all of these contests, and then what I actually do is I'll just export them into it's the spreadsheet from DraftKings, right? So this is the lineup. Here we go. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit here. This is the lineup spreadsheet for all the lineups that I'm going to be entering this week. As you can see, that is just a strictly dummy lineup that I have in there. So if I make this a little wider so I can see it, actually, I have it sorted by entry fee and then tournament. So we've got our 20 entries here for the 20 max. Here are the Magnolia entries, the 150 Magnolia entries. And then we are going to enter, we've got the Pat Mayo Experience lineups in here. And then we've got the 150 for the Millie Maker. And then we have the 33 single entry down at the bottom. And then we have, up at the top, I've got like the GC Cup, the Gups Corner Cup contest. That's a free entry because it's a season long. So each week it's free. And then the Fantasy Golf Degenerates Listener League, I entered that as well. So just kind of spread out. It ends up tallying $3,800 in buy-ins. So the budget a little bit out the window this week, and we'll see how this goes. So I think, okay, just from a strategic standpoint here. So this is something I probably need to talk about a little bit in depth. I have made a lot of mistakes when I have max entered contests in the past. Even specifically just 2 weeks ago at the match play, I think I kind of blew it a little bit. And it's very easy for those of you who have never max entered or max entered just a handful of times, something you don't do it regularly. It's very simple to say, I have 150 lineups. I'm going to try and get every player, exposure to every single player. I'm guilty of this. I've done it myself countless times. I did it at the WGC. The problem is you just never get enough leverage on anyone. The prime example is at the WGC, we were basically within 5% leverage on every single player in the field. And when someone popular got knocked out, Like, it wasn't really that great for us. When one of our guys got through, it wasn't really that great for us because we were just kind of within 1 percentage point of everyone, or a few percentage points of everyone. There's just not enough leverage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a proactive approach to make some stands here at the Masters, with the understanding that it will be more volatile this way. If I don't have Dustin Johnson in a lineup, I'm going to pay for that. like that's gonna hurt, right? If he goes out and wins this thing. But truly, it's the optimal. It's the best way to try to win one of these GPPs. And I cannot sit here and make the same mistake over and over and over again. I'm willing to lose all $3,800, and you should be willing to lose every dollar that you have in the GPPs that you're entering. So if you are entering 150 lineups into something, you should be willing to lose it all, and you should be willing to take stands and make lineups that allow you to do that. So we're going to kind of start through the end of my research process here. So let's kind of roll through this really quickly, or I shouldn't say quickly. I don't know how long this is going to take. What I like to do is start with, so I'm going to start with my single lineup. I think I'm going to make one single lineup, and we are going to extrapolate off of that to get 150, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But so right now, I basically know who I generally want to play, but I want to do a little more data behind it. So what I could show you is, this is literally just the DraftKings salary spreadsheet. And all I've done is I've added a few projection things on the right-hand side here, which is like win percentage, cut probability, top 5, top 10, top 20, stuff like that. And I'm going to plug them into an optimizer. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm pretty anti-optimizer because I don't like the way they do it. So I have actually am thrilled and lucky enough to have a friend of mine who built me an optimizer. So the optimizer that you see is not open to the public. I'm sorry. It's for me. It's for me and my friend, where I use it to go in and get, I usually don't generate just a bunch of lineups with it. I go in to get a better idea of things. So I'll give you a good example, and we'll run through this here. So I can take this this salary sheet that I have and just change one of these columns. The column that we're going to optimize on is column I here. So right now, I just want to optimize through win probability. So I'm going to change this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see if I do this right. So if I have this VLOOKUP, if you guys follow along, you know I'm like the king of VLOOKUPs when it comes to this stuff. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is, instead of optimizing by, fantasy points or anything like that, my first optimization, is that a word, of the week is usually going to be by win percentage. So usually when I do this, it is going to pump out 2 top studs, for example, Dustin and Rory, who eat up about 20% of the win equity this week. And it's going to pair them with a bunch of lowly scrubs. So that's my initial guess here. We'll see if that actually bears out. So here's that optimizer that I'm talking about. As you can see, no thrills, but you also cannot have access to it. And I'll just plug this information in, and I'll run this. And all I want to see is, I only want 3. I'm just trying to get an idea of what optimal lineups look like. So yeah, as suspected, going strictly off of win percentage, right? So it's just, this is so good, because instead of summing fantasy points, which is what most of your optimizers want to do, I'm optimizing based on win percentage or win equity. So what this is saying is, if Dustin Johnson has 10.54% chance to win this and Rory has 9.82, when you add that up and give me 6 guys with the highest sum of win percentage for under $50,000. Okay. So this first lineup has a 24.37% chance to have the winner, for example. Okay. If you can't take the sum of the win equity. Now, of course, just as we expected, it gives you Rory, DJ, Finau, and then Bernhard Langer, Victor Olov, I don't know how he pronounces that, and Takumi Kenyatta. Because those guys are basically just min price zeros. I'm obviously not going to play this lineup, right? Like, clearly I'm not going to play this lineup, but as I look through the first three, what I notice is, okay, Dustin and Rory, great. Finau's the next one off the board that fits into these lineups. Webb Simpson fits into the third lineup. Charles Howell fits into it. So just by the nature of this optimizer, it has to find value. In this case, value is guys whose win probability is better than their salary, for example. So that's what this is doing. So, okay, so I just make a mental note. Okay, Tony Finau, Webb Simpson, Charles Howell, that's great. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to my salary sheet, and I'm actually just going to remove, what I like to do next is, like, I'll just remove anybody under like 60. I'm trying to look at this. I mean, Corey Connors is here. Kevin Na's here. Like, I'll do this. I'll do anybody under Kevin Na. I'm just going to give a 0 to. Okay, so like the optimizer won't pick them. So I'm basically just removing anybody under $6,500, and I'll see what this spits out. Okay, because now it's not going to be able to give me, I assume, DJ and Rory in the same lineup. It's going to have to give me something else. So let's pump these in and see what comes out of it. Okay, so now we're getting into much more reasonable lineups here. We still have Rory and DJ. Their win percentages are so significant that they continue to pop up here. Charles Howell is now in all three lineups. So what that would indicate is Charles Howell at $7,000 and 1.56% chance to win this is a really, really good value. Charlie Hoffman also shows up here. I don't know how much Charlie Hoffman I will play. I'm probably going to die with him if he goes out and wins this thing. Siwoo Kim shows up. Kevin Kisner shows up. Emiliano Grillo shows up. And Aaron Wise shows up. So again, I'm just trying to get a feel for what this is pumping out. So now it's starting to get into some reasonable lineups. These are lineups I could conceivably play. I'm not super thrilled about it, but I could conceivably play these lineups. I want to go a little bit deeper here and just continue to, I like to continue just to make the field smaller, right? So now I'll do anybody under 7,000 I'll get rid of. And it's really going to have to, compact the player field a little bit. And I'm not necessarily going to end up with a lineup that looks like this with no one under $7,000, but I want to see what the optimizer does. I'm just trying to learn right now. Right now I'm just trying to learn. For me, this is just intelligence. I'm just learning. Okay, so now we lose Rory out of these lineups. Okay, so we still get DJ, and we get Tommy Fleetwood, who would be like the next man up. Okay, so Fleetwood 9,200, 4.3% to win this thing. Haotong Li shows up. I actually do think Haotong Li is a pretty fair play. He's long off the tee. I think he's just a fine play. Keegan shows up. Billy Horschel shows up. Matt Fitzpatrick shows up. Okay. It's very interesting. So this is kind of what I'm getting an idea of. And now what I'm going to do is continue optimizing things, but go a little bit different. So because the win equity of DJ and Rory is so high, they eat up a lot of things, right? They are head and shoulders above the field in terms of win percentage. So I like to look at like cut percentage because they are not head and shoulders above the field in cut percentage. For example, Justin Rose, for example, has a higher cut percentage than higher chance of making the cut than Rory does. So I'm actually going to flip this a little bit. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Change this to 7. And now we're going to run some optimizations based on likelihood of making the cut and giving me a sum of players who match that criteria. Now, this would be a pretty good way to create cash game lineups, quite honestly, is just give me the top 6 guys with the highest cut percentage. And now this is a completely different lineup. And these tend to be more balanced lineups For example, none of these guys have a worse than 78% chance of making the cut, but now the lineups are Jason Day, Paul Casey, Tony Finau, Rafa Cabrera-Bello, Charles Howe, and Tommy Fleetwood. Rose is in the second lineup. Rose is in the third lineup. I'll tell you what, I would very easily play some of these lineups. All of these lineups, I would be happy to play. So now we're getting somewhere. I have ownership on the back of my mind a little bit. Like, I assume Jason Day is going to be pretty under-owned. I assume Finau is going to be very popular. Fleetwood's always very popular. Charles Howe will be popular. Like, these are things I'm thinking about in the back of my head, but I'm not really at ownership yet, which we'll talk about later. Okay, that's cool. I don't think I need to do more. Like this is kind of what I was expecting here for making the cut. So I'm cool with this. What I do want to do next, though, is I do want to get more into some of the strokes gained numbers. So what you're looking at right now, if you're watching the video, let me see if I can get this framed up a little bit better here for you, is, again, this is kind of something that, this is just a tool that I use because it plays nice with my optimizer and whatnot. So all this is the raw strokes gain data that I have on my site, right? You can go to the strokes gain database, the strokes gain tool. You can see it in the player profiles. This is the strokes gain data. And it's formatted in the same way the DraftKings salary sheet is. And the reason that I do that is because now I can easily change the stat that I want to see. So I can easily choose strokes gained approach, or strokes gained off the tee, or strokes gained putting, change the date range, and it's going to change the column that I'm going to plug into my optimizer to that stat. Okay, that is why I've built this. So I like to do, so normally I've been doing basically everything since January 3rd. That was since the Century Tournament of Champions. You could cut this down. So if I cut this down to February 6th, I get the Arnold Palmer, I get the AT&T, Genesis, Honda, Players, Valero, Texas Open, Valspar, and WGC Mexico. Maybe you want to go more recent. And I like to look first at tee to green. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this, and I'm going to actually pause because this is going to go into my computer here for a second, but I'm going to export this sheet and I'm going to plug it into my database. All right, so this is the export for strokes gained tee to green since February 6th, and it's the same. It looks exactly the same as the salary sheet. So now we're going to optimize based on this. And let's see what we come up with. So now it's looking for values based on strokes gained tee to green. All right, now we're cooking here. So now the optimal lineup for strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained tee to green would be Rory, 2.75, that's in round average. Hideki, 2.02. Victor, we'll just call him Victor, I don't know. 1.3, Corey Connors, 1.89, Paul Casey, 1.76, Matt Kuchar, 1.58. That costs $50,000. The second lineup only costs $49,300, which always excites me to leave money on the table during a major or during any contest, quite honestly. But I'm not going to play Victor. He's an amateur. He's $6,200. I don't really care what his stats are. I'm probably not going to play Corey Connors. He's a first timer. But what I'm learning here is, okay, Rory, Hideki, Corey, Paul Casey, Matt Kuchar, Siwoo, a lot of similar names here, but I'm just optimizing based on this. But one thing I really like to do is, and I don't know if I've done this calculation before. Let me see here if I can do this real quick. I do this other calculation, which, give me 1 second. I'll do it and then I'll explain it to you. Okay, so this calculation is, I like to take strokes gained tee to green and subtract strokes gained putting. And I know what you're thinking, Rick. You're like, wait a minute. Putting wasn't even involved in strokes gained tee to green to begin with. Why didn't you just use strokes gained tee to green? Valid question. But the reason is I want to see, I don't know how to explain this. Like, okay, so we know that putting is the most volatile stat, right? Like I'm basically team no putt. Like give me all the guys who play well tee to green and can't putt. But when you subtract putting from strokes gained tee to green, you see the guys with the biggest difference. So I guess in theory, I guess in my brain, in my theory, you see the guys who have the biggest opportunity to improve, if that makes sense. So if, who's a good example here? Okay, so Hideki, excellent tee to green, second best in the field, but pretty bad putter, right? He loses about 4/10 of a stroke putting every round. So he is actually a 2.4 on my new calculation, which I don't have a cool name for yet. So if anyone wants to, is strokes gained no putt, I don't know. If anyone wants to name it, I'm happy to use it. But to me, that says like his putting hinders him so much. Like this is the range, like there's such a big difference between his tee to green game and his putting that even if he putts like slightly above his baseline, he would be in contention. And this is not just bad putters. Yes, there will be a lot of bad putters on here, but like Rory's not necessarily a bad putter. He gains 4.2 or 0.4 strokes per round on the greens, but his tee to green is so good, he still shows up here. Guys that don't really show up here are guys that are pretty much even tee to green and even putting, which might be a flaw in this, that they kind of just get, leveled out of it because they're consistent in both of them, that I don't really see where the upside is, so to speak. So I like, this is just kind of a fun one. I don't take it too seriously, but I want to do more research into it. But I'll just like to plug this one in, and we'll see what comes out of it as well. I'm sure Hideki's in the list. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I got to get Victor out of these. So believe it or not, this might be the identical lineup. It is the identical lineup. Wow. So when we did this, we actually got the same lineup. Rory, Hideki, Victor, Corey, Casey, and Kuchar. Pretty interesting. I keep saying I'm not going to play Victor. If this goes out and wins the $1 million, I'm going to be pretty pissed, I guess. But that's pretty interesting and didn't really change anything. So there you go. That was not that conclusive or great because it didn't really do much. All right, so I generally now have a really, really good idea of who I want to play, what some of these optimals look like. The next step is we're going to actually start building these. So again, we're going to build one lineup for our single entry. Then we'll turn that into 3. We'll turn that into 20. We'll turn that into 150. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to pause here for a second, but you won't know the difference. All right. Lineups here. All right, we're ready to finally make some lineups here. And this is really the first time that I'm going to start to consider ownership, and I'm going to start to consider what type of contest this is going to go into. And I want to, let me think how I want to put this. Because I'm going to start with one lineup, and then turn that into our core cascading method, and then turn that into 150. You'll kind of see where I'm going to go here. But what I want to do is I would ideally like to make lineups with guys that I can't resist first. Okay, so I think it's pretty clear, and those could be top guys, those could be bottom end guys, those could be middle guys, just guys who I want to be first in. I think a big mistake a lot of owners make here is either starting at the bottom of the list or starting at the top of the list. I don't necessarily do that. I do it in a way like this person needs to be in my lineup no matter what. So where I'm going to go is Tony Finau. Okay, so I need Finau in my lineup. Finau to me is someone who makes a ton of birdies. He's trending in the right direction. This to me, I'm almost playing this, and I talked about this a lot this week, as a no-cut event, right? I mean, obviously there's going to be some of these players that get cut, but so many of them are going to make it through that if you give these guys 4 rounds, can they make a ton of birdies? Finau absolutely fits that criteria. After that, I mean, there's so many places I could go here, but I'm going to try to get some salary cap relief. And there's a couple of guys down here at the bottom that I know, and I'd be happy to play a lot of these guys, quite honestly. But going down under 7,000, I'm going to pick up Siwoo Kim, who, unfortunately punted it away last week, but maybe that keeps his ownership down just a tad. Maybe not. But he's only $6,700. I think he is the cream of the crop for his price range. He has a great around the green game. I'll plug him in. And then I'm going to take one more cheap guy that I'm hoping is safe. Okay, so I'm hoping Charles Howell is safe. 11 of 12 cuts this year. He's having the best run of his career probably right now, finally getting the win this year. I'm plugging him in. Plenty of experience at Augusta, even though I don't think he's played it since 2012, I want to say. It's been a while, but I think he can certainly hold his own in this field at this price range. Then finally, or not finally, I'm going to go grab Kuchar, who, well, yeah, I think I can grab Kuchar here. So Kuchar, and let me think about this. So I can either grab Kuchar, who's going to be, just uber chalk, or I can make a stand here and get someone like Stenson, who I also really love in this range. So if I did Kuchar, I could then go up and I'd have 10,001 left, so I could get Rory and Xander, for example, which would put me, do I like this? So I think Xander's going to be this is a pretty chalky lineup outside of Xander. I think I might have to make a stand here. All right, so let's try this. Let's get rid of Kuchar, and let's go with Stenson instead. Again, another guy trending in the right direction, guy I love here. Then if I get Rory, can I get Jason Day? No, I could get Spieth. Ugh. Oh, man. This is where things are really going to get hard. So I could go Rory and Spieth. I could go DJ and Day, which I kind of like. That's probably a pretty unique build. DJ and Day is probably pretty unique. Or I could even go Justin Rose, who I'm quite honestly might just win this thing. Rose and Fowler, that might be pretty good. Let me see how this looks. Rose Fowler, wow, that's pretty interesting. And if I don't do that, I could do JT and Rom. No, I don't like that as much. Wow. Okay, so here's what we could do. Rose and Fowler is really, really intriguing here. And I think it might be a pretty unique build. I hate that it's $50,000, but Rose and Fowler are probably not two guys that get paired together often. I actually slacked this out just earlier today, which is like, this is projected ownership. So if you're not part of our Slack channel, you should join the site and be a part of our Slack channel. This is projected ownership and win probability. So Dustin Johnson and Rory both have very high win probabilities, but also, both projected to be, 20% owned. Justin Rose is the next best win probability, and he's about 15%, which would make him in a pretty good spot. Jason Day, Justin Thomas, Bryson DeChambeau all fit the mold of that. Guys on the other side of it, like Kuchar, who will probably be pretty highly owned, who certainly will be highly owned. Fowler's kind of on the wrong side of this, but just barely. So that's what I'm thinking about here. So I think we've done a couple of things. If this is the lineup that we're going to roll out, a lot of places, I like it for a lot of reasons. First of all, I think it's a really good lineup. I love Justin Rose. I think Justin Rose could absolutely win this thing. So if he's our stud, I'm thrilled. Fowler will be popular, but again, I actually think he could win this thing. Finau's the birdie maker that I want 4 rounds out of. Really good record last year. Came in 10th. And then Stenson, who I'm hoping is the pivot off of Kuchar. We are essentially not essentially. We are fading Kuchar here and going with Stenson instead. And then you get Howell and Siwoo Kim, who are 2 guys that I think are better than their price range, or better than their salary, or especially better than the players in their price range. What I also like about this, so when we get to core cascading in a second, this is going to be really important. There is different guys at every price range. When I core cascade this, if everyone was that balanced lineup, I would have been in, I would not have, okay, so if my highest owned golfer was Brooks Koepka and I didn't have any money left over, I would have never gotten anyone above $10,000. But now I have Justin Rose, so I can get access to some of those guys at the top, right? I'm going to be swapping guys out at every price range. So let's see what that looks like. So let me plug this first lineup into the spreadsheet and we'll go from there. All right, so I've got the first lineup in here. So this is the lineup that I will play in. So I'll make sure I get this in the WGC Cup, the WGC Cup. Wow. GC Cup, excuse me. The Fantasy Golf Degenerates Listeners League. I'll make sure I get it into, real quick before I forget, the Pat Mayo experience, right? I'll clear out these placeholder lineups that I have. Maybe. I don't think I got them all. Okay. And I'll also play it in this single entry. Okay. So that'll be my single entry lineup. And then what I'll do is, sorry, I want to make sure I get this right. Try not to make you nauseous scrolling through all this. So now this is where the Core Cascading method comes into play. And this is literally how I won I don't know if it was called the birdie last year, but it was like the $3 or $4 20 max, which is what we're doing right now. This is how I won it. It is we talk a lot about player pools. This is a very tight player pool because what we're going to do is this. Okay, so I'll just show you how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put that main lineup in kind of the top row here, and I have them sorted left to right by highest salary. Okay, so Justin Rose is the most expensive to Siwoo Kim on the far right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 3 new lineups for every single one of these core players I'm going to leave out. So it is going to look like this. So I left 3 Siwoo Kims out. So then I will do 3 lineups, 1, 2, 3, without Charles Howell. But Siwoo is back in, right? So we'll do this. 1, 2, 3. And then we'll do the same. So then we'll take Stenson out. So 1, 2, 3. We will put Siwoo and Charles back in. Do the same for Finau. 1, 2, 3. Then it's Ricky's turn. 1, 2, 3. We'll get Finau back in with the guys. And then we will just take, and it's actually going to be 4 where we won't have Justin Rose. So this is what the cascade looks like, and it's why it's called this, right? It looks like a cascading effect where now for each one of these core players, I'm going to replace them with someone else in their price range. What this does is a few things. It keeps your very tight core. So like if all 6 of these guys make the cut, I'm in business because I'm going to have a bunch of bullets. But also if 5 of them make the cut, I'm not dead because Siwoo, like I will have at least 3 more bullets that don't have Siwoo if these other guys go nuts. This is very high risk. If you are risk adverse, this is not the method for you. Flat out, because these could absolutely go up in smoke, and you know, these could just be really, really like we are just as likely to, or very likely to lose everything here. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. So we'll do this first one together here. Okay, so Siwoo at 6,700. Oh, and then also really it allows me to get access to guys that I might not have normally have gotten access to. So when I go down to $6,700, and who was, oh, that was Siwoo. I cut him instead of copied him. Okay. So if I go to 6,700, well, now I can choose 3 guys that are under 6,700 that I want to play here. So Kisner and Kyle Stanley are probably 2 guys that I want. And then I don't know who else from this spot. I don't love it. Shane Lowry, Jimmy Walker, Andrew Landry, Emiliano. If I had $100 more, I would go up and get Charlie. I could get Kiradek. I guess you know what? Let's just do, you know, they're all first timers, man. That's what I hate. I don't think Kiradek is. Let's play. Or is there anybody even further down I'd want to play? Probably not. All right, we'll play Affy Barnrat. They all happen to be exactly $6,700. That is not a requirement here. All right, so then we'll go to Charles, who is 7,000. So now I can do, let's see who I like here. I like Keegan, who is 7. We'll throw him in. We will throw in former champ Zach Johnson. And we will throw in, this is where I will get exposure to Charlie Hoffman, just in case he absolutely snaps off and wins this thing. Stenson is 76. And you'll see, like, this is where I get access to guys in this price range, right? And actually, there's these 3 right here I love. Or I don't love, but I'm interested in, right? Okay, so Poulter. Actually, I'll do Poulter. Woodland, who for whatever reason doesn't play well here, but he should. And then actually, I'm going to go down to probably go down to Haotong here. I considered Cabrera Bello, but we'll go with Haotong instead. I think he's just a little more interesting. Finau 82. So you see, if these were us, we're all in the same price range, we would just be constantly sharing the same guys here. So we'll do. Okay, so here we can get Kuchar. Here we can get Louis, who's got that great short game. And we can also get sneaky little Patrick Cantlay. All right. And I'm not worried about leaving money on the table here at all. Like literally whatsoever. Fowler, we will take, again, oh, these are, okay, so we'll take Koepka, who would be sneaky, Bryson, who would be sneaky, and Jason Day, who would be sneaky. That just gives us like 3 really kind of good sneaky options here. And then Justin Rose, we can get anybody under Rose. So what I might just do here is take Tiger, Thomas, Rahm, and someone we don't have yet. We could do Tommy here. We could do Tommy. Okay. So now you'll see the way this cascades becomes really interesting. So our core of Rose, Fowler, Finau, Stenson, Howell, and Siwoo, like if that goes nuts, we were in serious business, because we're going to have a bunch of them and plug one of these other guys in. So that's the core cascading method. All right, so then what I'll do is, just in case any of these are the nut lineup, we're putting them everywhere. So we're going to do 20 in the Magnolia, and then 20 in the Millie. And then what I want to do is I want to optimize. So when I'm thinking about this from 150 lineups, I want to optimize probably 50 based on strokes gained tee to green. Maybe not that many, maybe 40-ish. We'll see what the number comes out to be. But that leaves us with about, so I have 20 already. I want to do 40. That's 60. Gives us about 90 more lineups to play with here. So what I want to continue to do is I want to do this core cascading, but I don't want to make a mistake that I've done in the past, which is do 7 completely different cores to try again to try to get access to everyone. I don't like that. So I'm going to make separate cores here, but I'm going to keep them pretty clean to each other. Okay. So when I say that, I'm going to do I'm going to do Rose. So core number 2 here is going to be Rose, Finau, we'll do Stenson. Anybody else down here at 7,000 that I thought I wanted to go with? I don't think so. I think I'm okay doing this. And I'll do Jason Day instead of Justin Rose. I want to get access to Day. I think he's going to be significantly under-owned for who he is and what his game is. So we're going to go Rose, Day, Finau, Stenson, Charles, Siwoo in our second run here. So let's do 3 of these. Then we'll do Siwoo. And because we now have, so when I get Fowler out of this lineup and put Jason Day into it, it's going to leave us $600 extra. So we are going to be able to go up now. So Justin Rose, we're going to be able to take up to 11-4, which is going to give us now access to DJ in these lineups as well, which I think is really interesting. Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So these should be these guys. 1, 2, nope. Right here, 1, 2, 3. Finau, then Day would come out. 1, 2, 3. Your eyes start to go crazy after a while. And then we'll add Day back in and do 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this should be 20 lineups. 16 plus 4. Okay. So Siwoo. So now it's interesting because now we're going to get access into different tiers. Okay. So we're going to get some more unique lineups. So Siwoo at 67, but we have $6,000 to play with. So we can actually go up to 73. So here's where we can get Snedeker, who I like. Matt Wallace, who I think is interesting, even though it is his first time. I'll sneak him in there. Someone like a Terrell Hatton. Is there anybody else I would want to play? Let's do that. Let's do... Yeah, we could do Hatton here. So then Charles... I keep wanting to say Charles. Charles can now go to 76. So now we can get... I'll do Cabrera Bello, who I didn't play last time. I'll do... Remember Woodland, Poulter... those guys were replacements for Charles last time, or I'm sorry, Stenson last time. Now they're replacements for Charles because we have the money left over. We'll do Webb Simpson here too, who I liked. Stenson is 76, but now we can go to 82. So now we can get, here's where I'll put Kuchar in because we don't have much of him or really any of them to this point. So I'll do Kuchar. I'll do Patrick Reed, and then I'll get Sergio in here, who I actually think is a pretty good play. We'll try to get Sergio into some more lineups. And then for Tony, we can go to 88. So that gives us now access to Bubba, Hideki, and Xander, who I like. And then Jason Day at 91 gives us access to 97. So that gives us Fowler I won't do because we already have that lineup. I'll do who was it? I'll do Casey because we don't have Casey. I'll do Spieth. And I'll do Fleetwood. So again, this is not exactly random, but it's like kind of random, which I think is good. I think people introducing some more random into their lineups is pretty good. So then Rose at 10-8, we can go to 11-4. So obviously that's DJ, who's unfortunately... I can't go up and get Rory here. And then I can get Tiger, JT, and Rahm again. Okay. So that's number 2. So I do want to get some Sergio in here. And maybe the way to do this is, let me think about this here for a second. So as much as I love Siwoo, he's pretty risky, right? Just as likely to come in first as he is last. So we're going to swap Siwoo out for JB Holmes, who, has a distance off the tee. Just somebody I think is live down here. We'll keep Charles for the nature of this. We will keep, we'll continue with Rose, Day, and Finau, who I just, can't get enough of those guys. And then for Stenson, we'll go with Sergio, who I want to get some access to Sergio here. So now this lineup gives us 400 left over. So that's what we're going to be able to work with here for this cascade. So bear with me as I do this. Sorry, if you're listening to the podcast, it just sounds like radio silence. I'm just cascading these, so sorry. And we'll do Rose and then JB. Is this right? Should be good. Can't tell you how many times I've done this cascade thing. All right, so now you got $400 to play with. We've got JB Holmes 6,800, so we can go up to 72. So again, generally when I like the same players, I'm gonna try to get them in here. So we'll go Snedeker instead. We'll go Hao Tong instead, and we'll go try Brandon Grace. That's probably someone who would not have made any of my lineups if I wasn't cascading here. Charles Howe 74 is what we can go up to. So I can get Webb. I think that's a pretty good steal at 7,400. Let's try Eddie Pepperell and Matt Fitzpatrick, who are, again, these are guys I would not have played. Okay, I'm just trying to get some extra bullets here. Sergio can get us to 81. I'll do Kuchar again because I just, think he's such a good play. We don't want to have a complete fade of him. We'll get Leishman and Cantlay here. So Leishman, again, probably someone I would not have played if I did this. Finau can get us to $8,600. That gives us Okay, this is actually a pretty good range for us here, where I can get Molinari, I can get Xander, and I can get Adam Scott. And then Jason Day gets us to 95, which gives us, I'm cool with this. Brooks, Bryson, and Fleetwood. And then Justin Rose probably doesn't get us up high enough, right? That gets us to 11-2. Yeah, okay. So unfortunately then, Rose is going to have to default to be these guys here, which is Woods, Thomas, Rahm, and Fowler, which is okay. And that should be 20 lineups. It's only 19. Who did I miss? 3 for Holmes. Oh, no, nobody. I counted wrong. Okay, cool. That's 20 lineups. So for me, this is probably a pretty good stopping point. For you guys, it won't really matter, but I'm going to take a break here. Maybe come back tomorrow, a little fresh, and continue these lineups. We currently have 60 of 150 done. We're going to do a few more cascades, and then we'll optimize the rest. But this is the process here, guys. We've been going for basically an hour on the cam. So I'm pretty burnt. We'll get back at it tomorrow. All right, back at it here. Took a break last night. Was honestly just getting to the point where I didn't feel as sharp. I thought I was probably in a position where I was going to make a lot of bad lineups. Wasn't going to make a lot of good decisions. I wanted to sleep on it and come back. So I actually did finish up the lineups today. I won't take you through everything, but I'll point out a few more things that I did. I just did a few more core cascading groups of 20 with trying to keep my trends together. I didn't want to go out and get everybody, but I wanted to get access to a little bit of DJ. I wanted to get JT as my lead in a lot of lineups. I wanted to, let me see if I can show you here. Here's my Millie Maker lineups. I made sure that I had so Siwoo Kim, JB Holmes, Charles Howe are kind of like the 3 lower price guys that I really went with. I made sure that I got, some lineups that had both JB and Siwoo, both lineups that had Siwoo and Hal and JB, Siwoo and JB, and then, those guys by themselves too. So just different combinations of that because those were the majority of my low-owned guys. Additionally, I did, when I went to do the Rory lineups, I tried to get some guys, when I paired Rory with, I think I did it with like Rory and Charlie Hoffman, excuse me. And then I went contrarian in the middle because those were two guys that are going to be very, very highly owned. So I went with like Xander and maybe Molinari or guys in the middle that I thought were not going to carry as much ownership. When I took guys at the top like Justin Thomas and Jason Day, I went with guys that were going to be a little bit chalkier elsewhere. So it was like Kuchar or Bubba or Hideki, for example. And then the last 30 lineups, I wanted to kind of remove myself from this. And I just tweaked it a little bit, but I optimized the last 30 lineups. And the last 30 lineups were, I think I can see a few of them here. They were done via, these are definitely them, or some of them. Done using tee to green stats. Okay, so I did the tee to green numbers since February 6th. It pumped out when I first did 30, like Corey Connors was in all 30 of them. I dialed that back. Keegan was in like 24 of them. I dialed that back. It ended up giving us a lot of Rory, a lot of Hideki, a good bit of Paul Casey, a good bit of Tommy Fleetwood, a good bit of Kuchar, Woodland, Keith Mitchell. Like the lineups that I've highlighted here are the lineups that, some of the lineups that were pumped out. So where does that leave us? What I did is I did some ownership here, and if I haven't mentioned it yet, I'll link all of these lineups in the description. This exact spreadsheet, this Google Doc. If you want to look at it and follow along, I'll put it in the bottom or in the description here. You can follow along with me. That's the whole point of this. So I broke down my ownership based on the contest. So the 800K that is the 20 max. So that is a pure core cascading method that your core players, you're going to have 80 or 85% of, and you're going to sprinkle everyone else in. So in this case, it's Rose, it's Fowler, it's Finau, Stenson, Charles Howell, Siwoo, and then, 5% of a bunch of different guys. Then in the 2000K Magnolia and the Millie Maker, we have the same percentages of everyone since they're the same lineup. So looking at this, I have it broken down into what I actually have. So my percentage, when this locks, I will update with the actual percentages, and then leverage would be who we are higher or lower on. So for example, we have 29% of our lineups have Rory in them. If Rory is 25% owned, we will have 4% leverage on the field. If he is 35% owned, we will have minus 6%. Okay. So just looking at this, guys that we are going to want to have success this week are going to be Rory and Justin Rose. If Dustin Johnson wins it, we only have 12% of him. That's probably not going to be enough. We are rooting against Tiger. Unfortunately, John Rahm, we only have 3% of. Koepka, Bryson. If any of those guys win this, we're probably in trouble. We'll be pretty happy if Justin Thomas wins this, which I expect 15% to be maybe 5% more than what the field has. Ricky Fowler, we have 13% of. We certainly won't be overweight on him in the Millie or the Magnolia. We will be in the 4 because we have 85% of them. Fleetwood and Jason Day. Fleetwood will probably be more popular than this, but we'll at least have some shares of him. We will probably have significantly more on Jason Day, so we'll want Jason Day to win this thing. Paul Casey and Jordan Spieth we're actively rooting against. Bubba and Hideki, we might be in line with what their actual percentages are. Xander will probably be pretty overweight. Finau will be very popular, but we will be very overweight, I assume, because no one's going to get 47%. Matt Kuchar just kind of ended up happening. I didn't really love drawing the line here. He might be 30% owned. We might actually be overweight. Really quickly, when you do 150 lineups, you can almost out chalk players in some spots. So if you think there is good chalk, for example, you have an opportunity to double the field if you're going to be 40% on a guy that's 20% or 50% on a guy that's 25%. You have the opportunity to do that with 150 lineups and kind of out chalk the rest of the field. This is probably not something with Kuchar specifically that I was trying to do. It just ended up happening. Probably be heavy on Cantlay, probably be heavy on Stenson, certainly will be, which I did want to happen, right? Like Stenson was a guy that I said, okay, I'm going to take an active stance to be overweight on. The rest of the field outside of that, anybody between Stenson and Charles Howell, if they win this thing or go deep, we're in big trouble. We only have a few percentage points of all of them. We'll be heavily overweight on Charles Howell. We will be extremely overweight on JB Holmes. The salary cap relief, the fact that he's won already this year, he's got the distance. I think he's going to be under owned. Like I bet you if when the percentages come in, JB Holmes will be the number one guy that could win this for us, right? Like if I could handpick anybody, I could pick JB Holmes to win it because he'll probably be like 5% maybe, and we'll have so much more than the field. Charlie Hoffman, we might be pretty in line with, and then Siwoo Kim. Again, I expect to be popular. He ended up in 52% of my lineups, which I think is really, I mean, Siwoo is the epitome of feast or famine, right? He's either going to finish first or he's going to finish dead last in this thing. But he has all the stats to kind of get us there. I'm a little bit nervous about this, but at $6,700, I hate to say it because it's probably not going to win the Millie Maker, but just make the cut, right? Just make the cut. I don't need you to win this thing. Just don't bury all of our lineups. All right, so there you go. That is what I've got. Actually, if you want to see it, here's what they look like in DraftKings, right? 21 entries with this lineup. That's my cash game lineup. It's in the most amount of things, but then there is no other lineup that has more than 3 entries. Some will have 2, which is just the Magnolia and the Millie Maker. There are a bunch of lineups that have plenty of money left over, a couple $100. I bet you when lock happens, like 90%, maybe not 90, maybe like 80% of the lineups are going to spend $49,700 or more. So just spending less than that, leaving $400 on the table or more probably separates you from having a ton of duplicate lineups. So there you go. That's it for me. This was a long video. It was my whole lineup thing, lineup building process. I will, again, post that Google Doc with all my lineups, all my leverage, completely transparent. Come sweat with me. Hopefully we have a sweat come Sunday. I fully understand that I am taking a very high-risk approach to a very top-heavy structured tournament, and I expect to lose money this week. But I'm trying to build enough plus EV lineups to put me in contention. Maybe we get lucky and maybe something good happens. I'm fully aware of that. These are the types of videos, maybe not necessarily where I spend $4,000 every week, but these are the types of videos I want to continue to make in the future where they are just, pull back the curtain or something different than what you guys might have seen before. So if you've made it this long, much appreciated. I'm looking forward to this. Tell me what you think about this. If these videos are valuable, let me know. If there's something similar you want to see, let me know. Now's your time. I'm here for you guys. I want to make cool stuff together. Just tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand or leave a comment below. Best of luck at the Masters. Let's hope we have a sweat on Sunday. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.